Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I am Bill, the company's expert, the internet personality with the $1 million hair. And today we're going to talk about getting hired. Welcome to How to Get Hired. The title of this episode of How to Get Hired is What Are Your Strengths? Best answer. As well as, do you have any questions? Best answer. And this is the 99th episode of How to Get Hired. How to get hired, not how to get hire, how to get hired. There's kind of a little bit of a difference there. TGIF, thank God it's Friday. Just a shout out to everybody. Thank you to my YouTube channel members, to my Patreons, to my super thanks donors, and of course to you, the participants. Thank you for being here. This is an interactive live stream where you can ask me questions. You can tell me what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, anything to do with job interviews, resumes, careers, networking, all that kind of stuff. That's what we're here to talk about. And if I can help you out by clarifying some stuff, that's what I'm here to do. It is Friday. It is right near the holidays in many parts of the world, but recruitment and selection keeps going on, surprisingly more than you might think. So if you are taking a break in the next few days for a little while, or you're going right through, that doesn't matter. We're all here to work on this problem, and that is to get you a job. And we're going to do that by covering a couple of things. We're going to cover the two questions in the title in reverse order while we're waiting for people to get in the chat and ask me some questions. If this is your first time here, if you're seeing my face, you should see a chat box somewhere nearby. Get in the chat box. Let me know what you're wondering and what you're struggling with, and we can talk about it. Okay, just to kick us off here, we're going to talk about that wonderful question, usually the last question that's asked in a job interview. And that's where usually at the end of the interview, the interviewer, whether they're a recruiter or a hiring manager, they turn to you and they say, do you have any questions for us? Right? Have you encountered this before? Usually they ask us right at the end. Sometimes it's because you haven't really had an opportunity to ask anything for the entire interview up to this point, because they've sort of led the interview and they've been interrogating you and they've just been firing these rapid fire questions at you. Sometimes they read them off a sheet. Sometimes it's more organic, but you haven't really had a chance to speak freely yet. So now they give you the floor and they say, do you have any questions for us? So you're going to encounter this, so it's good to know how to respond to it. Now, let's get some of the obvious stuff out of the way first. If you don't ask any questions, if they say, do you have any questions for us? And you say, no, right? Usually, that's not good. That signals some negative things in their eyes. They will interpret your lack of questions as a negative thing, and they will look less favorably at you because of it. For example, they might think that you just don't care. You're not interested really that much, right? So you don't have any questions. Or they might think that you haven't done any preparation for the interview, which also is a negative. They might also think that that's because you don't care very much about this job. Or another thing they could conclude is that you're desperate. You're desperate for a job, which they consider to be a negative. And because you're desperate for a job, you're just applying to everything. And as a result, you don't really have any specific questions about this job because this is not that special to you. You're applying for everything you can get. So if you don't say anything, it's bad. So what can you say? Well, there's several sort of good questions that you could ask. I'm going to give you some examples. You could also make up your own that are kind of variations on this too. But the most obvious would be, how has this position become available? Right? That's a pretty good one. Now, depending on what they say, there could be opportunities for you to ask follow-up questions. So if they said somebody retired, or they said it's a new position that we're creating, if it's a new position, the obvious question is, well, why did you guys decide to create this? What was the thing that instigated this, right? So that's always a popular choice, and that's one of the more obvious questions. there's many things you could do here. You could talk about where are things going in the future? Where do you see this company going in the future? Or where do you see this industry going in the future? Or you can even ask, like, okay, we've talked about the role now, but where do you see this role going in the future? Do you see it evolving to take on other duties and responsibilities too, right? So the future question is good. What do you see in the future for the role, the company, or the industry? Okay, those are great questions. Another variation on this is challenges. This can be an even better question because it allows you to get some insight into the job, into the role. You can say, what do you see as the main challenges for this role, for the person in this role going forward, right? Or you could extend that to the industry. What do you see as the main challenges for this industry going forward? Or what do you see as the main challenges for this company or this organization in the future or in the near future? Okay, those are all great too. And if you ask questions about the role, you could be getting insights into what's going to be involved in doing this role. And that's a great thing because you can maybe then speak to, briefly, you could speak to, oh, I have that, or I enjoy that, or something like that, and get even more points. There's other things you could say too. I mean, those would probably be good, but there's a lot of other things you could say. You could ask more personal questions of the interviewer. You could say, well, if I can ask, like, what do you personally enjoy the most about working here? Right? That would be a great question. You could even ask a more exotic question. You could say, well, if you were CEO of this company, what would you change? Right? Now, personally, a lot of other people will recommend that question. I don't know if I recommend that question as much because they won't really be able to speak freely. So they'll give you maybe a non-answer, or they'll give you some trivial thing. They won't really dish the dirt on the company or the role. But, it might be, if you have a good rapport with the interviewer, it might be something that might be an intriguing question to throw at them. More questions about the role. The role is good. We talked earlier about challenge-related questions, like what do you see the challenge as the main challenge for the person in this role? We already talked about that. An extension of that would be saying, what would a typical day for someone in this role involve? Right? Walk me through their day. What would they do in a typical day? On a typical day. That could be a good question. That gives you more insight into the role. An extension of that is asking them something along the lines of, if I were in this role, what would be your expectations of me in the first 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days? And they might be able to sort of draw you a very crude map and say, well, in the first 30 days, we'd expect you to, understand this and be doing these duties. Then in the next 30 days, we'd expect you to take on more of these duties. And then finally, by the 3-month mark, we expect you to be fully over the learning curve and doing the entire role unassisted or something like that. And it gives you an idea of what's going to be expected of you if you were in the role. Another great question to ask is, what types of people do you see as that are generally successful in this role? So they would say, well, we expect people that have a background in sales to be very successful, or we have people with a strong technical background would probably, have a pretty easy time in this role. They'd be very successful. Something like that. That gives you more insight into the role, so you could perhaps speak to, what they say. It gives you opportunity to say, oh, that's great because I did sales. We didn't talk about this, but I actually did sales for 5 years. So that's perfect. Something like that gives you extra points. And the last sort of big question I would recommend that people could use in their arsenal of questions to ask would be this question here. It's a bit long-winded, but bear with me. It's, have you seen anything in other candidates that you haven't yet seen in me that I could perhaps speak to? I myself have asked that question in job interviews years ago, and that produced some very positive results. If the recruiter or hiring manager or any other interviewer has some reservations about you that they haven't really shared with you, sometimes they will disclose it when you ask this question and say, well, you did really well. Other candidates seem to have a stronger technical background than you do. So that might be your weak area, but, and that gives you the opportunity to say, something interesting that hasn't actually come up in this interview is the fact that I once did a project on this, 2 years doing this. And I think that really is relevant to this, or something like that. And then you have a chance to slip in a little thing at the very end that gives you some more points. So those would be the main questions I would ask. The final question you always want to ask at the end of a job interview, no matter what the context, is you always want to say, where do we go from here? Right? So where do we go from here? Usually when you're shaking their hand or, doing the elbow bump or the chest bump or however you end an interview in your particular industry, whatever is standard to end a meeting and say your goodbye. While you're doing that, it's great to ask this. So where do we go from here? And you want to know if they're going to call you or you should call them or, when can you expect to hear of a decision or if you won't hear of a decision. It would be good to know that, right? So this gives you the opportunity to ask that question and get some clarification on what's going to happen next. Okay? So those are some great questions to ask. You don't have to remember all of these. If you have maybe 3 questions, the third one being, where do we go from here? Usually that will be sufficient. I would recommend one of the 3 questions would be about the role. And if you do that, you will pass this question. You will get some insights into the role, allow you to maybe get some final couple of points and make yourself look better as the lead contender. But that's what I would say to this question. Now, the other great thing about this question that not a lot of people know is that if you are good at reading body language, okay, asking this question at the end can be a bit of an indicator on how well you did in the interview. So depending on how eager they are to answer your questions and spend time with you answering questions at the end of the interview, that can be sometimes be a general indicator of how you did. If they just want to get you out of the room quickly, they don't seem to be super interested in talking to you anymore, that tells you something. If, on the other hand, they're wanting to make time and they start giving you long and detailed answers to the questions you're asking, and they don't mind talking to you and they're enthusiastic about talking to you, that can signal that you did pretty well, right? So that's the other great thing about this question. So pay attention to their response when you are asked this at the end and you start firing questions at them. And hopefully that makes sense. If you do want to go deeper in this, check out that course. All my recommendations for everything are there. Link in the description. David is here. David, you are on a lot of my live streams. You must really be a big fan here. Thank you for coming back. David says, I got a rejection email from the hiring manager. Is it helpful to send an email and ask if new positions available? I'm interested in your company too. Okay, listen, David. First of all, let's get an obvious disclaimer out of the way. Everything happens some of the time. So if I say, yes, it's worth your while to do that. Okay. Sometimes it'll happen. Sometimes it won't. If I say, no, it's a waste of time, don't do that. Sometimes it would have been worth your while. And some other times it wouldn't have been worth your while, been a waste of time, right? Okay, so everything happens some of the time. However, generally speaking, personally, I hate to tell you this, but I would say it's probably not worth your while. Just on playing the laws of average here. Because if a decision maker is rejecting you, they're saying, I'm sorry, we decided to go with someone else, they're probably not in a frame of mind where they're willing to consider you for other positions. You see, the reasoning is that, they've just considered you, but they've passed you over. So however it went, they decided to go with somebody else. That tends to suggest that they don't really click. They don't just happen to value all the things that you have, and it's not a great fit. Okay. Now, you may get further applying for a job at that same company in another department with another decision maker who's going to consider you with a fresh perspective because they haven't met you before. As far as they're concerned, you're a new candidate, right? But all things being equal, I hate to say it, I don't think you're going to get a lot of success going back to the same person who has just rejected you and saying, would you consider me again? Okay. So that's what I would say. It doesn't mean that, it's a waste of time. Everything happens some of the time, but generally speaking, that's how it goes. It's like the same with, it's like a similar type thing if you work for a company and they decide to lay you off. Okay. And then on your way out the door, you ask the manager, does it make sense for me to come back and to reapply to this company or this department? They might, to be polite, they might say, yeah, sure, but these are the people that have just decided to lay you off. And generally speaking, it doesn't look good, like they value you a lot. That's what those circumstances suggest if you don't know any of the mitigating circumstances. So that's what I would say. So I wouldn't make a habit of it. Now, if this is a dream job and there's a slim chance, but you want to go for it, go for it. There's no harm in doing it. All you risk is your time being wasted, like a little bit of your time. So, you know what I mean? Like, there's no harm in doing it. But what I would do is that if you still want to work there and it's a big company with a lot of people, I would find out if there are positions with that company through other channels, not going through this person. I would start by looking on the website. You could do that. You could look on LinkedIn and, all that, see if they're hiring. But I would also do the networking thing. And I would maybe reach out to other managers or other decision makers at that company and see if they're hiring in different departments or something. Okay. Different branch offices, different divisions, like that kind of thing. That's how I would pursue opportunities with that same company if you were just rejected for one job and you really want to work there. Okay. But remember, there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of employers around you that have potential to hire someone like you. Okay, so there's a lot of things out there that you can go for, a lot of opportunities. So, unless this is a dream job, I would look further afield with new prospects rather than trying to beat the door of the company that's just sort of rejected you. Now, I'll tell you a personal story that may or may not be useful to you. There's something that I did years ago when I first applied for a teaching job. I'm not a teacher. Like I've never taken any education on how to teach. And I thought it would be interesting to apply for a teaching job. I don't remember the circumstances. I was asked to come and teach for one job, but another one, I think the earlier one, I actually just applied. And not knowing about this stuff, I just applied through the website. Anyway, I heard nothing. So I put in an application and of course you hear nothing. But later on, I reached out to somebody in that department and they met with me and they essentially offered me the job right there. This was completely independent of an application I put in. I think I'd actually forgotten I put in an application like a few months earlier or something. And completely different results. Like I went down and I met with them. I think I approached them and said something to the effect of, I notice you have this job or you have teaching positions occasionally. Does it make any sense for me to apply? And they said, yeah, we're looking for teachers, sure, come on down, let's meet. And then they all but offered me the job. It was pretty easy, actually. So my point that I'm trying to make is that you can have totally negative results applying for a job through one channel, but then you go over another channel, and in my case, it was networking, and you actually reach the person and they consider you properly, right? So just be aware of that. There's more than one channel you can go over, and that's actually what I recommend. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Get in the chat if you are watching. I see there's 20 people here. Thank you for being here. I wish you guys well. If you are between jobs now, I'm here to help. I'm here to help you if I can by answering questions. And we could discuss not just technical questions, we could also discuss more of the condition of being between jobs and stuff like that, what you can do about it. I know that it can be an extremely stressful time. You know, there's mental health issues that can be at stake and stuff, depending on what your situation is. And sometimes just talking about these things helps. While we're waiting for people to get in the chat and ask more questions, I'm going to move on to the main topic of this live stream, which is, what are your strengths? Best answer. And I did like a little bit of preparation for the stream. And I know I've covered this question before, in the past. And so I wanted to see if I had any material. And I actually came up with a little bit of I guess at one point I'd done a PowerPoint presentation of some kind on this. So I'm going to see if I can fire that up now and give you guys a bit of a visual sort of component to this here. Okay, so this is the question. What are your strengths? Now, you can be asked this, obviously, in a job interview. You could be asked this in a job application, okay? But regardless of where and when you're asked it, you pretty much give the same answer, okay? This is actually a really good question to be asked in a job interview. This is the kind of question you want to be asked, because a lot of the questions that are standard in job interviews, they're almost like an ambush. Their goal is to trap you, to get you to reveal negative things about yourself, where you undermine your case, that you're trying to make for being the best candidate, right? Well, this isn't that type of question. This is not a trick question. It's not a trap. They're giving you the open floor to sell yourself and explain how you're the best candidate and why these people should forget all the other candidates and hire you. Okay, so that's what this is, and this is great. Okay, now this question, okay, what are your strengths? It's actually kind of almost interchangeable with a couple of other questions. For example, why should we hire you? How would you answer, why should we hire you? You would and remember, they're asking, why should we hire you? Right? Not like, why should we hire someone, but why should we hire you instead of somebody else? You're going to make a case for yourself and say, well, this is why I kick ass, right? So it's very, very similar to this question. What are your strengths? What are your strengths? Well, I'm going to give you reasons why I kick ass and I'm the best candidate, right? It's the same answer, even though it's a different question. The other question that it's similar to is, why do you want to work here? It's like, well, I want to work here because I kick ass at doing this kind of thing. That's why I want to work here. You guys are looking for someone who can do this. I rule at doing that, right? And this is why you should hire me. So it's all the same thing. You're going to say positive things about yourself, okay? All these questions are very, very similar, okay? And before we get there, I just want to say, this is really what the whole purpose of the job interview is for you. It's to explain to them why they should hire you, why you're a perfect fit, why they won't regret hiring you, why you'll be how you'll be able to do the job perfectly. That's what you're there to say to these people. You're not there to explain what your weaknesses are. You're not there to explain where you see yourself in 5 years. You're there to sell yourself and give them reasons why they should pick you, right? So that's why this question is great, because they're asking you the perfect question that sums up the whole reason why you're even there, okay? So let's move on. Okay, and hi to Talia Watts, who is just here. That's an awesome name, by the way, Talia. Okay, so here's the first big challenge of this question. The reason why a lot of people fail, actually, okay, is because when you answer the question, what are your strengths? Obviously, you're going to say things that you consider strengths. You're going to say things about yourself that you think are good, that maybe you're proud of, right? Now, the problem is that this isn't like you writing an autobiography where, like, you know, all that matters is I think these things are good, so I'm going to say them, right? No, you're down here to tell them what they want to hear. And if they don't hear what they want you to say, they're going to reject you, okay? So the only thing that matters is not what you consider a strength, it's what the interviewer considers a strength. Now, you probably don't fully understand what I'm talking about because strengths are strengths, right? Wrong. Let's see if I can give you an example of this. Let's say you're being asked this question and you've come down to apply for a job where you have to be, say, a project manager. Okay. Now, a project manager, there's a whole variety of different skills that you can have, and they can be things that you would need to have to be a project manager, right? On the one hand, you could have project managers can be very technical people. Like if you're running, a project that involves accounting, right? You might have one or two accountants on your team, or you could have no accountants on your team. You just have to be an accountant and really keep up with costs and, all this kind of stuff and track the progress of a construction project or something, right? So you need to have strong technical skills and accounting skills, but maybe you don't even manage a team and you don't really interface with a lot of other people. So people skills are not really that high on the list, right? However, other project management jobs, you hardly need technical skills, but you need a lot of people skills because you're running around coordinating big projects with like a ton of other people. And the people you got to deal with are different types of people, right? So you need very advanced communication skills and interpersonal skills and collaboration skills and all that kind of thing, right? So you apply for a project manager job and they ask you, what are your strengths? Okay. And you say, well, my biggest strength, according to me, is the fact that I'm a real people person. I can connect with many different types of people. I can work well with many different types of people. I really spend time building relationships and making sure everybody likes me. And, that's my greatest strength. Everybody wants to work with me by the time I'm done, and they enjoy working with me. And the recruiter hears this and says, no, that's not what we're looking for. I mean, this is for a project manager, but you're not running a team and you don't really have to interface with anyone really except your boss. And what we're looking for is more of a technical type person who's going to be at their desk working on accounting and not off socializing all day long. If you're the type of person that socializes, you're probably going to be out by the water cooler, goofing around with everybody and talking all day instead of being at your desk doing the accounting. So, no, I'm sorry. That's not what we're looking for. And you fail the question. You see what I'm saying? They want to hear strengths that they consider strengths, not strengths that you consider a strength and you're very proud of, but it doesn't have anything to do with this job. Does that make sense? A lot of times you won't know that it doesn't have anything to do with this job because they haven't shared the precise nature of the role with you yet. It's a project manager job, you need some accounting skills, but you're just assuming they would need lots and lots of social skills. And you're assuming that you would have to connect with many different types of people, right? So you're speaking to that. But as it turns out, unbeknownst to you, that's not required. So when they hear you going on about you, the things that you think are the greatest things about you, it's falling flat. So that's why this is a real issue, okay? You consider the things strengths. What does the interviewer consider strengths, okay? Now, how do we find out what kind of things the interviewer cares about and wants to hear? The answer is the job requirements, because they've told you. In the job description, they've probably said, we're looking for someone that has, this and this and this. They have this education, they have these skills, they have these experiences, right? So you know that they care about those things. So when you talk about what your strengths are, if you can speak to those, you can do them reasonably well, you consider them strengths. It's reasonable to suspect that when you start talking about those things, their ears pick up and they go, okay, yeah, now that's what we want to hear. That's what we're interested in. Okay, great. So it sounds like you're a fit. What you consider to be your greatest strengths, that's what we happen to be looking for. So, Okay. So that's why you can't just answer this question off the top of your head. The safe material is the material they've already told you that they care about, okay? There's going to be other things too that they care about that they haven't revealed yet, okay? But you go with the stuff you know they care about, okay? So I'm trying to understand my own presentation here. For both forms of the question, okay, so whether they're asking you, what are your strengths, or they're asking you, why should you work, why do you want to work here? Or why should we hire you, I should say, you give the same answer, which is you go down the requirements listed in the job posting and you speak to each one. So for example, if they said, what are your strengths? You would say, well, and the job description says they want someone with 5 years experience in project management. You start off by saying, well, probably my biggest strengths is I am a professional project manager. I have 5 years experience in project management. And I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm very good at it, right? And then maybe they've also said, we're looking for someone who has this accounting certification or something. Then you say, another big strength of mine is that I'm a fully certified accountant. So when it comes to doing accounting, I know my stuff, I'm on my A game, and I can handle any type of accounting challenge or task that the role requires. And then you keep going, right? So everything that they've said there, you could potentially go down each of the requirements and talk about it. Now, what does speaking to the requirements actually mean? What do I mean here? Because let's face it, a lot of times you'll apply for a job and you'll get an interview, but technically you didn't meet every single one of the requirements that they listed in the job posting, right? You might have most of them. You might have, say, 7 out of 10, but there's 3 on there that technically you don't have. It says they're looking for 5 years experience driving a forklift. And maybe you took a training course on how to drive a forklift once, but you never actually worked in the warehouse and you never actually drove a forklift. Okay? So maybe on your resume it says like forklift certified or, accomplished, training course in forklift, but you haven't actually worked as a forklift operator at any point in any job. So how do you speak to the requirements when you don't technically have it? Well, here's the deal. You could not mention it, right? That's one option. But assuming you have the time to keep going, I recommend that you do speak to the forklift certification. What they're wondering is, okay, this forklift requirement, obviously it's not a hard requirement. It's not a deal breaker if you don't have it, as evidenced by the fact that they've brought you down for the interview, even though on your resume it doesn't indicate anywhere there that you've got, 3 years experience driving a forklift, okay? So you don't have that. So it's obviously not a hard requirement. It's probably a nice to have, right? If you can see my fingers, my beautiful sign language here, it's nice to have, right? Sorry, gesture, not sign language. There's all kinds of gestures you could do. I don't know if I want to do any more of them here. It's a cultural thing. Anyway, so you don't have this, but I would still speak to it. What they're wanting to know is your lack of forklift driving ability going to be an issue if we hire you? That's what they're wondering. It may not be a hard requirement, but occasionally the project manager may need to drive a forklift. And if that happens, they want to know that this will not be an issue for you. So during your answer to the question, what are your strengths? If they've listed a forklift certification or 2 years forklift experience on the job posting, you can say, well, another one of my strengths is that I'm fully certified to drive a forklift. I haven't worked with 2 years experience full-time driving a forklift, but I have taken the training course. And if I need to get back behind the wheel of a forklift, I could do it with very minimal, remedial training. It would be very easy. Within a day, I'd be back to being able to operate a forklift. So it's not going to be an issue, right? So you're addressing it. You're speaking to the requirement. You're not necessarily saying you have it because you don't have it, but you're assuring them that if you do hire me, this requirement's not going to be an issue. Maybe they say you need 5 years experience in customer service. And let's say you only have 6 months experience in customer service. It's not the main point of the job, but it's something they've listed as a requirement. You could say, well, another one of my strengths is that I know how to do customer service. I don't have 5 years experience in customer service, but I have done it for 6 months. And also, for the last 10 years, I've been working with people that come from a customer service background. And occasionally when I take calls from customers or suppliers or any of these people, I follow all the same protocol, the phone protocol that they do, and I can help customers and partners and other external contacts just as well as my coworkers who have 10 years experience in it. So I'm really not worried too much about that element of the job. Something like that. And it puts their mind at ease that that's not going to be an issue for you. Okay? I'm going to get to questions in a second. I see some questions piling up, but don't worry, I will get to them in a second. I'm just going to finish this answer here. Okay, so that's what I mean by speaking to the requirements. So when you answer this question, you speak to the requirements. If you meet the requirements, it's very easy to talk about them. If you don't quite meet them, I recommend that you still bring them up, but just you don't necessarily, you're not going to lie about having them, but you're going to say, this is not going to be an issue. Okay, that's basically what you want to tell them. It won't be a problem. Okay, the other thing they're looking for from the vast majority of jobs is they're looking for soft skills. Okay, hopefully everybody knows what soft skills are. That's like, being likable, having good communication skills, good collaboration skills, conflict resolution skills, public speaking skills, presentation skills, negotiation skills, all that kind of stuff. That's all soft skills, right? So a lot of times in job postings, they don't explicitly mention these. They don't say we're looking for a self-starter, who has great communication skills and great written communication skills. And they're, very easy to deal with on the job in the work environment, stuff. They don't say a lot of that stuff usually, but it's implied, right? And a lot of times the job interview is actually about soft skills. Your resume and application was about technical skills. That's what they got from your resume and job application. Do you have the technical skills to do the job, right? But when you get to the interview, it's more of like, okay, what are you like as a person? Let's see your soft skills. Are you professional? Are you likable? Do you have any charisma? Are you easy to deal with? If you go down there and you're like really, upset and you get angry and offended over every little thing, and then you look very hostile to them and they don't really want to deal with you and they don't enjoy dealing with you. It almost doesn't matter how good you are technically. They don't want to hire a person like that and work with them every day, right? So soft skills are always going to be a requirement, okay? So the big question is, when you answer this question, what are your strengths? Do you go into your soft skills, okay? Now, I have a complex answer here. I would say for the vast majority of jobs, don't go into them, okay? Because saying that, I've got good communication skills, I'm a very likable person, it's kind of silly. The fact that you say it doesn't prove anything. They are, like it says, they're demonstrated. Okay, so they will already know if you're a good communicator and you're likable by what the experience has been like in the interview thus far, right? So you don't have to take up time mentioning these, okay? However, I know a lot of people do recommend that you do this. So I still say no, but the one advantage that it can provide is if you're going for like an entry-level job or a worker-level job, by mentioning the soft skills, what you're doing is you're signaling that you understand that they are important, okay? So that's like, something that's important. Like, I know that this is important, and so that's why I'm mentioning it. Some people don't even realize they're important, so you have an edge over them. The other thing is that you have to kind of sometimes guess what the soft skills they're looking for are. We're back into that territory. If they haven't mentioned it on the job posting, I would steer clear of it, personally. A good compromise is to mention one or two obvious soft skills necessary for this position. Not general soft skills, but specific skills that would be necessary in this very specific role. So if you know that project managers need to have very good conflict resolution skills or very good diplomatic skills, I would mention those maybe. Okay, but not like general skills like, oh, I'm a good communicator. That would just be my personal recommendation. It's up to you. There's pros and cons to doing this. A lot of times, it would be good to just speak to the hard requirements, the technical skills. And usually that gives a long enough answer to begin with. You don't have to then go into soft skills. Okay, so that's pretty much the gist of this question. I wish you the best of luck if you get asked this. This is a great question to be asked. And you are awesome, every single one of you. Okay, that's what I have to say about that. Let's go over to the chat. Talia is here. Talia has been waiting very patiently. How do you ask, what type of situation, if I am hired, am I walking into? Am I coming into a situation that I need to clean up for? Or clean up? Or, okay, listen. Here's what I would say to that. There's no real ironclad or easy way to find out. You just can't. Now, even if you were to ask them, what's the guarantee that they're going to reply truthfully? Are they going to say, oh, you're walking into a mess? I mean, it's just chaos. The last person left suddenly amidst very contentious personal conflicts with everyone around them. Of the existing people that you're going to be working with, they all hate each other. And there's a lot of political games and stuff they're playing with each other, power politics and stuff. You're walking into a minefield. You're going to have to really be prepared for that. In fact, it's probably going to take a job that normally wouldn't be that challenging and turn it into a real nightmare. That's what you're walking into. If that was the case, would they say that in a job interview to you? It would be wonderful if you could find this out in advance. I agree. But in my opinion, there's no easy magic bullet to just get that insight before you take the job. Usually that's all part of the risk of taking the job. Now, what you can do is if you want to try and find out this stuff, okay, you want some kind of personal assurance, what you can do, okay, is you can reach out to people in the company. And I've talked about this. I talk about this so much on this channel. Think about it, LinkedIn, if you know the name of the company and you know the city you're in or region, you can do a search for that company to see, do a people search. You can see all the individuals in the company, and you then can contact them through LinkedIn. You could reach out to them. Even if you don't reach out to them over LinkedIn, if you know their name, you say, okay, in the department where I'm going to be working, or where I could end up working if I take the job, there are 5 people on LinkedIn, and these are their names, and I can see from their positions what they do. So you could call the company and say, could you put me through to Mr. John Doe or whoever that is in that department, and say, hi, you don't know me, but listen, excuse me, then you would go into a coughing fit on the phone, like, and, hopefully if it lasts for 5 minutes, that would be perfect. And you say like, hello, you don't know me, but listen, I'm in the running for this position, for taking this position. I mean, who knows if I'm going to get it? I may not get it, but listen, I was wondering if, would I be able to speak with you about this role? I'm trying to gain a little bit of insight, about it just independently. And, would that be okay? Something like that. Would that, like, it's very important you say, would that be okay? Right? Before you go any further, just is that okay? Is it okay that, can I ask you a few questions about it? Is that, and see if they'll tell you anything. Some people will, some people won't. Now, the fact that if you talk to like 3 or 4 people and they all say, no, I can't talk about it, that tells you something. It's like, it doesn't seem like a very open, friendly place. It's like everyone seems to be kind of paranoid, So, I mean, already you're getting insight, right? You could do that. The other thing you can do that's maybe a little bit safer is you can also use LinkedIn to find former employees, people who did work at that company previously. And you can reach out to them and say, hey, I see from your LinkedIn profile that you used to work at that company. Can I just take a few minutes of your time? I may end up working there. I'm not sure. But I'm trying to find out about the culture, like what were your experiences there? Was it a good place or was it kind of challenging? And then see what they say, right? So you can do this kind of thing. That's the networking approach. And some people won't talk to you and some people will, and if you get 1 or 2 or 3 people that talk to you, that's probably some pretty good insight into what you might be walking into. You can say like, oh, if I did end up working there, it would be in this department working for this person. Do you have you worked with them? Do you know of them? And they might say, oh yeah, don't work for them. They're a real jackass. So, you know what I mean? It gives you some ammunition for if you get an offer to know how much compensation to ask for, because maybe you still want the job, but you've heard that it's a real challenge there. So you might want more compensation for it to make sense to you. Things like that. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, Talia. Those are a few things you can do. V8 Super Special says, hi, Bill. Are you familiar with the Clifton Strengths Assessment from Gallup? Long story short, it's quite long, an accurate assessment of soft skills. No, I'm not. These are like what I call flavor of the month type management BS. It's like they're always coming up with new types of assessments, and it's like an endless churn. That's why I don't pay attention to them, because you wait a year or two and they've fallen from favor and they've been replaced with something else. That's how it's been going for the last 30 years. And I suspect that's how it's going to be going for the next 30 years. What we've got these days is there's 2 kind of things going on right now. One has been going for a while, and that was the rise of psychometrics. Okay, so I can't remember when they came. They came in before my time. So like, I think they might have come in the 80s. I'm not sure. Where to get a management type job, certainly they put you through all kinds of psychometric assessments. And those are regarded as sort of hit or miss. Some people put a lot of faith in them. Some people really, really don't, right? I have been assessed with psychometrics like several times, where they would produce a 100-page report with all kinds of graphs and charts and things that even as an electrical engineer, I wasn't familiar with some of these graphs. And I did try and influence it. Like, I remember I went in for a job where I got psychometrics, and they, there was, they wanted somebody with like a lot of sales type abilities. And I didn't have as much sales skills and experience as they were looking for. So what I did is I knew what the right answers would probably be. So I tried to really throw it so that it would make me out to be more of a salesperson type. And I succeeded to a degree. I managed to get it to say that, oh yeah, this person has like a lot of sales experience and they obviously know that stuff and they think like that. And it's like, okay, good. So they're really not what they're cracked up to be. They're not this clever thing that can assess you and you have no clue what's going on. The other thing that's happening right now that's led to the rise of some of these things is people are trusting a lot of educational credentials less. Not so much the traditional things, but a lot of the newer kind of things that are now available. You can get degrees and certificates in almost any crazy thing now. And so what it's leading to is it's leading to a situation where employers in general don't understand just how qualified you are because you've got this certain piece of paper. So they want to assess you all over again because they don't trust the piece of paper to really have any kind of standard of knowledge or education. So they're coming up with all this stuff. It's basically the same stuff. They want to look at your personality. And the other thing is that it also, recruiters and HR people, like recruitment and selection people, like this stuff because that way they can reject someone and not get blamed, right? Because you can always say, hey, I just did what the data said. The assessment came back and it said this, so I hired him. It's not my fault they turned out to be an axe murderer who knows nothing, right? It's like the assessment said they were good, so it's not my fault. Can't fire me, right? That's the other reason they like these things, right? It's all BS, to be honest with you. If they would actually get to know you in the recruitment process, the way they put in the time and effort to get to know a lot of senior managers and executives, they would know who they're getting, right? But they don't want to do that. It's too labor intensive and therefore expensive. So they rely on things like this to give the illusion that they know who they're hiring when they really don't. So I don't put a lot of faith in it. All these kind of things are of limited use, but some companies embrace them for the reasons I've stated. Others couldn't care less. Okay. The only one that I've ever sort of bought into is the Myers-Briggs, but not the Myers-Briggs now with a bunch of crap added to it. The original Myers-Briggs, where it's just very basic. Are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? Do you make decisions mainly based on emotions, or do you make decisions based more on technicalities? Very basic stuff. It's not going to go into, are you a good fit for this job? Like, that's a more complex kind of assessment. And that's what they tried tacking on to it. But it was all hocus pocus crap that doesn't work. So then they promptly conclude, the whole thing doesn't work. Well, of course it doesn't, right? So that's my opinion of these things. Now, you may be able to find some stuff online where they tell you like how to throw it or how to influence the outcome. The other thing is that you really don't know what they're looking for, especially when it comes to a personality type test, right? If it's a skills testing thing, that's a bit more sort of black and white. But if it's a personality type thing, you may not even know what they're wanting. So it's kind of weird to try and throw it or influence it because your assumption that they're looking for X could be off, right? And in this day and age, you can't always go by the assumption because they might be wanting to round out the skills in the department or something. You know what I mean? So sorry, I can't be more helpful, V8 Super Special, for this particular Gallup assessment. Okay, you just said, but apparently for some reason, every time I put it in my resume, it really gets glossed over. Why is that? I assure you it's for once a good one and costly too. Okay, I mean, look, I'm unfamiliar with it, so I can't, say if it's good or bad or anything. But all I know is that these kind of things, it's hit and miss. Some employers will put a lot of faith in it. Some won't. That's the thing. Nobody follows the same procedure to assess you when they make hiring decisions. That's why you get rejected from one company, but then you get hired on with another. Like, you haven't changed. All your skills and experience are all exactly the same. Why would one company say, no, you're not what we're looking for at all. You can't do this job. And then you go somewhere else and they go, you're hired, right? Like, it's obviously you haven't changed. It's how they assess you. And so whether these things are taken seriously or not is a reflection of that. Some people put a lot of faith, some people don't. So if you're proud of this, keep it on your resume. And occasionally, hopefully, you'll get an employer that says, hey, you got this Gallup thing, you got a good score, right? And that'll have some currency with them. And maybe that will work in your favor, because maybe if they also put currency in this test like you do, that might be more of a fit for you. You'll end up being happier there and more appreciated. I don't know. Talia says, okay, thank you. I don't have LinkedIn, but I could reach out to others as this is an internal posting. Okay, sure. Get on LinkedIn, Talia. Like, just get on LinkedIn, okay? When it comes to employment and career opportunities, just do it, okay? Like, you don't have to use it. You don't have to find all your jobs on there or whatever, but it is so useful. There's many, many different ways you can use it. To do all kinds of things, not just get a job, but like get other opportunities too. So just do it. It doesn't cost anything. You could easily set up an entire profile in like an hour or a couple hours, and just learn the absolute basics of it. It's very simple. It's like the Facebook of business. So I would highly recommend you consider that. You could open up all kinds of possibilities for yourself. Okay. There's a lot of resources on the internet to help you to do that, to explain step by step what to do. I've done, I think, a video. I did a live stream. It was like an hour long. Let's set up your entire LinkedIn profile. Other people have done stuff like that. Look into it. It's worth your while. Ghost says, credit reports affect job search. I have a security freeze on mine. Is that a statement or a question? If it's a statement, or it is a question. Well, listen, once again, some companies care about that stuff a lot, and so it's the first thing they check on you. Other companies don't, right? It depends on the different industries. Sometimes certain industries care more about that than others, but it's not like a yes or no answer. It does matter a lot to some employers, but not to all. Okay. The other thing is, like, the obvious thing is that if you are applying for a job at a low level with a big organization, like usually in the private sector, like a big company, they'll probably look into this stuff, or a lot of them will, right? But if you are applying to a small company, like small business, and I define small business the way the government of my country defines small business, which is a company under 500 employees. Okay, that's all small business. Those employers tend not to care about that stuff as much. You know what I mean? So there's like a lot of opportunities there. So make sure that you are tapping all the employment opportunities. You're not just looking in the posted job market. Also make sure you're looking in the hidden job market. There's a hell of a lot of jobs there, and they're pretty decent jobs, and they don't give a rat's ass about credit reports and all this kind of stuff. That's not what they go to, like first, right? If they do check that stuff, they probably do it at the very last step before they hire you, after they've checked references. And it's like almost just a formality. And by that point, they want to hire you. So, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter anymore. They just, they'll just go ahead and hire you. You know what I mean? That's been my experience. Not that I've had issues with credit reports, but like, I've worked for employers that was our policy. V8 Super Special says, it's a pity because its methodology was sound. Would I get more reception with Taurology? I mean, I don't know what that is. Is that another one of these like psychometric modern, candidate assessments? They're all a bit hocus pocus, too much, to be honest with you. I mean, yes, like a lot of them are based on some sound principles, but can you fool it? Can you throw it? In my experience, the answer is yes. If you know what they're looking for and why they're asking and how they regard the results, which you can find out, it is possible to throw these things, So, you know what I mean? And they're always replacing them. That's the thing. There's always something new. There's a new version. I think to be cynical about it, it's because sometimes they want to create the illusion of like, we've got new insights into how to assess a person better. The real world results show that they're getting worse at this kind of thing. collectively across the board. It's not like jobs are getting better, and people are finding their fit and they're finding a rewarding place to work and they're treated well and, they stay a long time. Like, we're not seeing that. We're seeing the opposite. We're seeing there's more issues with people not fitting. People are quitting after less and less shorter and shorter amounts of time, right? And so all these strategic decisions about hiring, especially at the lower level, they're not producing better results across the board. We're actually getting worse at that, but don't take my word for it. I mean, you could do your own research and form your own opinion about it. But that's, as far as I know, that's the real world results we've been seeing across the board. So it's not like any of these are like a magic bullet that offers real insight into how to assess someone properly. But I don't doubt V8 Super Special. I don't doubt that it's got like some useful stuff in it. Like, maybe it gives you insight into yourself. It explains, like, this is the type of person you are based on your answers. Therefore, you would probably be a fit for this type of role. And you read this and you go, yes, I agree. You're absolutely right. I would like a role like that. Like, I'm not doubting that for a second. But what I'm saying is that as a tool to find out which of these 10 people would be the most suitable for a job, when the 10 people understand how this test works, which you can easily find out, is it that great of a tool that will reveal the truth? Put it this way, all the ones in the past, the answer was no. Even the psychometrics that they pay, like, they pay people a hell of a lot of money to do this stuff. They'll pay like an HR company to come in as a contractor and provide the service to do psychometrics on their candidates, and they get paid a lot of money for that. And it just doesn't yield the results that I think that they're thinking it does. Talia says, "Okay, I will get on it. Thank you. Love your video." Well, thank you, Talia. That's very nice of you to say. It's very gracious to give me some positive feedback like that. Yeah, like, hiring is this real hocus pocus kind of thing. There's a lot of serendipity involved. And the reason for that is because, first of all, it's an imperfect world. You're here, and unbeknownst to you, there's a job right here that's perfect for you. And they're looking right now for someone exactly like you. But because this world is so imperfect, okay, there's no connection between you and this job or this employer right now. Okay, so neither of you see the other, right? And instead, you're sort of looking around you, right? And depending on how effective you are at discovering jobs around you, you're seeing a subset of what's around you, okay? You know what I mean? And you could be technically qualified to do many jobs, but you probably wouldn't enjoy doing that job after a while. Let's face it, a lot of jobs are crappy, and the job itself might be okay, but the people and the work environment might not be really good. They might be really toxic. It's a real thing. You know what I mean? So the other thing is that there's no consistent way that people evaluate candidates, right? That's the other thing. So like we were talking about earlier, you could get 1,000 no's because everybody who looks at you says, nah, we don't think you're very good. But then one person looks at you and they go, that's exactly what we're looking for. It's a very serendipitous process. So it's very imperfect too. So success depends on how many opportunities you can see and that you pursue. And then for each opportunity, you have to do a good job. You have to really present yourself very, very well and make a lot of educated guesses about like what they're looking for and what they care about and things like this. So you have to do a quantity and quality approach. Excuse me. God. I'm about to go into a apoplectic coughing fit. Apoplectic, there's the word for the day. You know, where your face turns red, like you're red from anger or a coughing fit, you know? Oh, excuse me. Okay, so LinkedIn will help. I think that's where I was going with this. LinkedIn will greatly help. It's another tool. It's not the be-all, end-all, but it's a very, very useful tool that gives you insight. Talia, there is a video that I've linked to in the description box of this live stream. It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. Okay. I'd recommend you watch that video. That might give you some ideas in what you can use LinkedIn for. Okay. It's one of the many things you can use LinkedIn for. Okay. And for other ideas of how to use LinkedIn, check out some of the other channels that for people that do things similar to this channel. There's a channel by Professor Heather Austin. She knows a lot about LinkedIn. She does a lot of videos about LinkedIn. Excuse me. If you want to use LinkedIn to connect with recruiters and go that way, that's something I don't really recommend and talk about, because I think I know and recommend other methods that to me are far more effective. But if you want to go that route, there's Madeline Mann, the self-made millennial. She has some videos that talk about that. So check those out. I recently did some live streams with these other YouTubers. So I'm become more aware of where their areas of expertise are. So check out some stuff from them too. Ghosts says, my not knowing the difference between effect and affect or grammar in general can have more effect on office job offers, or will my lovely personality factor in more? Well, once again, yes and no, because some places it won't, some places it will. Now, listen, you want the honest truth, Ghosts? If you had applied for a job with me and you made that spelling error, that would signal to me a few negative things about you, okay? So for me, yes, it would. It would have an effect, okay? Not affect, it would have an effect, okay? But for other people, it wouldn't. Other more touchy-feely, bubbly type people, that don't pay attention to the technicalities of things. They don't care about technicality. They would probably not mind. Okay? So the answer is yes and no. We always love that. V8 Super Special says, thanks, Bill. So in the end, it boils down to be as likable as possible. Well, yes. Okay. As we talked about, the job interview process, or the hiring process, has several stages. First, there's the application stage where you send in your application. Usually that's your resume, maybe cover letter, maybe forms and other things in there. And it goes in. And then they select a handful of people that sent in applications and give them an interview. That's the next stage. Now, to succeed in the application stage, that's all about your technical skills, because that's all they can see from your resume, right? So it's like a filter at the very beginning that filters out everyone that on paper doesn't have the qualifications, right? Now, of the people who are all technically qualified to do the job, you go in for a job interview, and that's where they start looking at who you are as a person. So now you're into this phase where things like likability really start mattering, and they become the most important part of that phase. Does that make sense? So likability is not this thing that's all important. It's the only thing that matters. But it does matter, especially in the interview phase, because everyone they talk to is fully qualified, right? So they've got to filter it down from several people down to one person. So that's when you start looking at like these type factors, right? And let's face it, if you have ever hired like an assistant or hired someone to work for you, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of people that could do the job, but the big question is, who do you want to work with you every day? If you pick the wrong person that makes your life miserable, it doesn't matter that they're technically qualified. You're miserable, right? You hate dealing with them. You might be scared of them. Who knows? So it really matters, So yes, it is very important. So when you go down to a job interview, you want to you want to do the obvious things that make you likable. You know, like you want to smile, you want to be agreeable, you don't want to take offense to every little thing. You know, you want to, if they do something nice for you that you appreciate, you say, you know, like, wow, you know, thank you for doing that. I really do appreciate it. You know, and it makes them feel better. They go, oh, you know, well, thank you. Right. And they enjoy dealing with you. Right. That stuff does matter. It's stupid that, you know, it has to be sort of like a dog and pony show where you do it on cue. But that's the nature of like a sales pitch, which is what a job interview is. You know, it's like, okay, perform, you know, what's so great about you? Go, you know, that's what it is. You're put on the spot. So it feels weird and it feels silly, but you know, if you've ever been on the other side of the table, or you ever will be on the other side of the table, which you probably will at some point in your life, you will understand why they think the way they think. And you'll get that other perspective and you'll go, oh, now I get it. Right? So it isn't all this big incompetent conspiracy theory all the time. Sometimes it is, but in general, it isn't. Yeah, like in an interview section, likability. But are there places, virtual or physical, where it's better to practice likability for the best ROI? Oh, definitely. Like, look, ROI, likability, I mean, it does translate into ROI. Like, okay, imagine you're a salesperson. That's the most obvious example. The more likable you are, the more people enjoy dealing with you, the more things they'll buy from you. The more time they'll give you, the more time you have to persuade them to buy your products, and the more they will buy, all things being equal, right? Okay? But even if you're like in the back office, you're a technical person, you know, you don't work with customers, you work just with internal people, right? The more people want to deal with you, the more they will deal with you. The more they deal with you, the more problems will be solved, the more questions will be answered, the more collaborative efforts will happen. So all things being equal, you will be more productive. The group as a unit will be more productive. Think of the opposite. If they all hate each other and they don't want to talk to each other, is that when good things happen? No, that's when mistakes are made, when opportunities are lost, you know, when people slow down because they don't want to deal with other people, right? So for a variety of mechanisms, likability, I hate to say it, does translate very indirectly into ROI. No matter where you are in a business operation, that's what you get, right? Now, some people will take me to task for this because there are situations where likability does, in the short term or in the immediate term, it works against you. For example, the more approachable you are, meaning the more people will ask you questions. That means that you have less time to spend on doing your job and more time spent on answering other people's questions. So it looks like your productivity goes down. Yes, exactly. That's the immediate effect. However, when you look at the entire group, right? People are getting their questions answered. They're getting trained a lot quicker. They're doing more work. They're spending less time being confused and more time getting work done because they now know how, right? So as a unit, it works out, right? At least that's been my experience, and that's the theory I've seen taught. And I can tell you from my real world experiences, it does play out. M. Poe says, I have a bad experience with my actual 2-year employer, so I want to submit my CV to other companies. Okay, yeah, nothing wrong with that. You have the perfect right to look at whatever you want and go wherever you want when it comes to like employment opportunities. It's great if you do feel loyal to an employer, but if you really don't, then you got to look out for yourself. My question is, should I mention that I've worked on the last company where I had bad professional experience? Should I mention in my CV, I mean? No. Do not mention anything bad, simply because of what we were just talking about. Likability, okay? Now, if you go down to a job interview and they don't know you, they don't know who you are, but the first words that come out of your mouth are, I didn't get along with my last employer. You know, they were a bunch of jerks. You know what they did? They did this. Isn't that stupid? God, I hated that. Oh, I can tell you, I could never work for someone like that. Does that give you a good feeling about this person? You don't know who they are. They could be anyone. They could be the most brilliant employee you would ever hire if you were hiring. But the fact that that's the first thing out of their mouth and that's the first impression that they're making on you is bad. That's a red flag. Usually the first thing out of your mouth is something more typical of who you are, right? So if you're an amazing employee, but, let's face it, every once in a while you get frustrated and you don't like things, chances are the first thing out of your mouth is not going to be everything you hate and every situation you did not get along with people in and how it didn't work, right? The more you say that stuff, the more they think, wait a minute, you're the type of employee that seems to not get along with people. And you're the type of employee where it seems to not work out for you. So I'm getting the impression that if we were to hire you, there's a higher risk that you would not get along with us and this situation wouldn't work out for you, right? That's the vibe I'm getting. So I would not mention anything negative, even the negative stuff. You just don't mention it because you're trying to put together the best possible case for them to hire you. And you don't do that by saying all the things you failed at and all the people you didn't get along with, right? Would you buy from a salesperson that said, hey, I think you should buy this drink? Look at it. Look how beautiful it is. Look at how beautiful the cup is. Oh, you look like a real sophisticated person. Oh, by the way, but 1 in every 3,000 of these are poisonous. And sometimes you discover hairs and stuff in them. And one time they even found a mouse, right? But you probably will be okay. So you should buy it, right? Would you then buy that product? Probably not, right? I know I'm kind of exaggerating this quite a bit, but hopefully you get the principle, MPO. Don't say anything negative about anyone or anything in a job interview because it will count against you. We all have negative things that we could say. We all have a history of things that didn't work out for us, failures, people that rubbed us the wrong way, people that we can't stand. We all have that. But it's not a way to make yourself look like the most amazing employee ever. Ghost says, thank you for your highly qualified insights in your life. Well, thank you very much, Ghost. That's high praise indeed. Thank you for being here to listen to it. Hopefully it's useful for you, and thank you for saying so. MPO says, future employer maybe will somehow find my bad history with the last employer. So in your opinion, should I mention my professional activity at the last employer? Absolutely not. Okay, listen. Okay, so like I just said, you don't say anything negative. Now, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to do a preemptive strike. You're saying, like, look, if they do some research into me, they're going to find that I didn't get along with my last boss. Or they're going to find that I was fired from my last job. So I might as well come clean and tell them that first thing. Right? So then no one could accuse me of hiding it from them, right? That's a very noble cause, and your heart's in the right place, and it does have a certain logic to it. However, it is not a winning strategy. You will lose if you do that. Here's what you do. If they ask you questions like, why did you leave your last job? Or tell me about a time you didn't get along with a previous boss, okay? Those are all traps, okay? We have all got those in our past, some more than others, but everyone has them, okay? We have failures, we have people we didn't get along with, we've got things that we've done that were stupid, that we're not proud of. We all have that stuff, right? Okay? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the dirt on you. They're trying to, they would love you to just like put all your cards on the table and say, look, here's the deal with me. I'm a great employee, but I did not get along with my last boss. I have been fired once, and it was kind of a misunderstanding, but they did fire me. And I have a thing in my past where a boss put me in charge of something, but I was maybe a little too young, it was a little too soon, and I messed up, and I screwed something up. and it was a big problem for the company, and they never trusted me again. Right? So there you go. There's all my shady history on the table. Now, what would you like to know? The problem is that, you see, you're making a first impression. And if that's the first thing that they learn about you, they're going to fill in all the other blanks with what they already know, which is that you're a person that fails, you're a person that doesn't get along with people, and you're a person that they're not quite ready yet to be in charge of things. Right? Because they don't know anything else about you. And you've presented this to them first. So that's who you are to them. Okay? So what you should do instead is you should minimize the negative stuff, present yourself in the best possible light, because all the other candidates will be doing the same. They're going to be hiding all their flaws and their rough edges. So in order to compete with them, you have to do the same, or you lose. They have just as much shady things in their past as you do. Maybe some of them have more, right? But you're not going to win by starting with that stuff as your first impression. Okay, so minimize it, and if they discover one thing at the very end when they call references or something, you cross that bridge when you get to it, right? The other thing is that you can mitigate what they can discover a lot of times. You just don't give them the permission to contact a certain employer, or you don't give them the contact information for a certain employer. You say, use these references instead, right? So you can get around that stuff. Ghost says, conversely, I've loved all my employers. Is praising them too much a bad idea? Well, I mean, as long as it doesn't go to a ridiculous or disturbing degree, But remember, there's a fine line with these things. If you go down to a job interview and the only thing you say throughout the interview is how much you loved this other company, everything about them was wonderful. Maybe somebody might get the impression, well, maybe you should go back there because you seem to be in love with that company. Maybe that would be more of a fit than this one. So as long as it doesn't go to that degree, I think it's fine. Empo says, I am not stupid. I'm not suggesting you are, Empo. I never mentioned that on my last employer I had a bad experience. Quest is, despite I'll never mention they can find my negative history. Yeah, well, kind of what I said, just keep it positive. Okay. They may be able to find stuff, but don't worry about that. Don't worry about the end. The best strategy is, as you go through this hiring process, don't think about the end where you're working there. Think about, how do I get to the next phase? So when you send in an application, the only goal you have is to be given an interview. So everything should go towards that end. And when you're at the interview stage, everything you say and do should go towards the goal of being offered the job. Get an offer, okay? And then when you're at the offer stage, everything you say and do should be involved in having them accept your offer, right? So don't think of the end. Don't think of the salary you're going to make at the very end while you're just sending in an application, right? Okay. What you're doing is you're saying, I want to mitigate a problem that can come up in the final phase, and I want to put things in place here at an early phase to prevent that from happening, right? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that type of thinking. And I totally understand. It's a very logical way to proceed. That's how one would proceed properly if you were doing a project or something. That's the right way to do things. You address issues early to make sure that they don't blow up in your face later on. It's the right approach. However, this is a sales process, and it's a little bit different. You're competing against other people that their strategy is to just get to the next phase. They'll say anything and do anything just to get to the next phase. So because you're up against that, it means that certain things won't work, generally speaking. The Truth says, bottom line, keep it positive during interviews. Absolutely. It's just a good rule of thumb for good cause. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, we've reached the end of the live stream. There's still 22 people here. Thank you for being here. It's Friday, so hopefully you'll be able to enjoy your weekend. Hopefully, you can disconnect from this stuff to a degree. Everyone needs their downtime, especially when you're, on a job search where this stuff takes like a toll on your mental health. I don't think you need me to tell you this. You got to take care of yourself, and you got to try and force yourself to do things that make you feel better, even on a base kind of emotional sense, like have some good food and, just relax a little and do something fun if you can, just to preserve your mental health. Some people will be looking for jobs and pursuing their job search for the next several weeks without like a break, and going right through the holiday season for many parts of the world. And if you do, you got to take care of yourself, So remember to pay attention to that stuff too. Don't let this stuff get you down. It can be very stressful, especially for some people. So we got to address that. The reality, just so everyone knows, I don't say this enough. Everybody has value, and everyone here is awesome. And you know how I know that? It's because you are doing self-improvement. You're trying to get better at doing this. And if you keep this up, eventually you're going to kick ass, and you'll be a whiz at this stuff, and you will have an edge over a lot of people who aren't doing this kind of activity. So, keep doing it. And don't just get your advice from one place. Get your advice from a variety of sources. And don't just get advice. Go out and try things, okay? There's nothing that can compare to experience when you're learning something. No one can tell you that this can't work or this can't be done if you've done it and it's worked. You know what I'm saying? There's no substitute for that. And sometimes it can be the tiebreaker if it's something where you're getting conflicting advice over, Some people say to do it, some people don't say to do it. It's like, if you really can't figure out what the right thing is to do, the next step is just to go out and try one and then try the other, and that's when the real learning begins. The Truth says, when is the next live stream? What I'd like to do is I'd like to go all through next week like it's a regular week for me. Like everybody else, I have a family and they have plans and stuff that involve me, I think. But I would like to try and do this. I know there's a lot of people around at this time of year that need a bit of help and moral support. So I'm going to try and do my regular live streams next week the way I normally do. So I do 2 on Monday, 2 on Wednesday, and I've been adding 1 on Friday the last couple of weeks. So I'll try to do all of those. And we'll go from there. So come and join me Monday. I'm not doing any collaboration live streams with other YouTubers for a little while till the end of December. So I won't be doing those, but I will be back next week on Monday. Ghost says, thank you so much for taking the time from your day to live stream. Your insights are very much appreciated. Well, thank you for being here, Ghost. You are awesome. I wish you nothing but the best. And as I say, you guys keep this up. You're gonna have nothing to worry about. You're gonna be employed. And what I really wish for like everyone is, it's like if you do the traditional getting a job thing where you apply for jobs and you get interviews and you get an offered a job. That's great. Obviously, that's the number one priority. But what I would love is if everybody who watched my channel, you guys also came away learning about how networking is the way to access many more jobs. And regardless of your personality, if you're an introvert or you're a technical person, if you learn just how easy this is to do and how possible it is for you to do, then I feel like I'm really teaching something useful. I feel that probably the biggest thing I've learned in my life that's helped my career is the networking is a thing. Introverts can do it. It's actually pretty damn simple to do, and it can open up a lot of doors for you. So that's what I feel is the real value that I can contribute to a lot of people. So check that out. Check out my courses. I got this course, which is the most pertinent probably for everyone here. how to get hired. That's where all my advice is. There's a link to it in the description. It's got all my recommendations with templates and procedures and all this kind of stuff. I have a business course too, but this is the other one that I think people here might be interested in. If you are going for higher level jobs, like management jobs, executive jobs, that kind of stuff, this is the stuff that will really open doors for you, tacking on some of those skills. It's called Write Like a Professional. It isn't the greatest title for it. It's basically communication skills, knowing what to say in what situation. That's very, very useful. So that'll open up a lot of doors in your career and qualify you to be in positions of greater responsibility. So check that out. Link in the description box below this live stream. And I've also done videos that describe these courses, so you know exactly what you're getting, and it's very transparent. Okay, I'm going to be signing off. Mpo says, thanks for the advice. You're welcome, Mpo, and best of luck. And Talia says, thank you for the information. I'm going to use your information for a job interview coming up. Great. Yeah, check out my Get Hired series of videos. They're the ones with like millions of views on them and stuff. Check those out, and you should do well. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. I will see you on Monday. Take care.